Did you know that prescription drugs are second to marijuana as the drug of choice for today's teenagers? Did you also know that 7 out of the top 10 drugs used by teens can be found at your local drugstore or your local health center? Each year, 32,000 deaths are the result of prescription drug abuse or overdose, while not a single person dies from the only drug that is more common. Currently here at Cal Poly, such drugs are being prescribed and distributed to their students with little to no necessity. As a result, students are going to the health center for the sole purpose of having easy access to prescription drugs and using them irresponsibly in turn. With finals quickly approaching, students are feeling the pressures and overwhelmment of doing well and being stressed out with their studies. This can even lead to a higher susceptibility for them to become ill. It is during times like these that the on-campus health center becomes filled with students looking for medicine for either restorative purposes or as a means of escape from their hectic lives. As the Student Health Advisory Council, you should be concerned with the students' misuse of drugs on campus that they are obtaining from your health center. The university's mission statement clearly states that Cal Poly values social and environmental responsibility. It is the ethic responsibility of campus's authority to avoid providing negative substances to students and thus leading them in a destructive path to a negative lifestyle. For instance, say John Doe, standard guy, is worried and stressed out about his finals coming up in the next week. He's staying up late studying and waking up early for classes, and this cycle of lack of sleep is leading to a drop in his performance. John, therefore, has to spend more time on his studies, and so on and so forth. This vicious cycle soon takes a toll on John, and he becomes ill. John's roommate suggests he goes to the health center so he can get well before finals. He assures John that he's been there before and they can provide him with the help he needs to do well. John's visit to the health center is right at the peak of his illness, so he is not looking too well. The concerned nurse gives John all the medication she thinks he'll need to improve his conditions. She prescribes codeine, a sleep-inducing drug, in order to help John get his much-needed rest, as well as Adderall to help him focus with the ADD that he mentions he struggles with. While I admit this hypothetical instance may be a bit exaggerated, similar occurrences happen more frequently than you might think. As current students at this university, my colleagues Rachel and Rebecca and I would like to share our research with you and bring the extensive negative results of this issue to your attention. We are proposing a revision of the current policy that the health center has implemented in order to make it more difficult for students to obtain prescription drugs from the health center. With our improved policy, the health center will be ensuring the safety and wellness of their students by minimizing the number of them who misuse prescription drugs. The health center will also benefit from this stricter policy by saving money because drugs are expensive. Now Rachel Marr will continue telling you in-depth reasons why the current policy is inefficient.
Thank you, Natalie. As Natalie told you, there is an unseen problem here at Cal Poly. Students are misusing prescription medications they're receiving from the health center on campus. This is mainly due to the fact that there's an easily accessible variety of prescription drugs at the health center. The story you heard earlier is based on a real-life story of a student at Cal Poly who misused Adderall. Many students on campus are able to walk into the health center with no concerning health problem and walk out with some of the strongest stimulants such as Ritalin and Adderall and painkillers such as Vicodin. Students are even able to obtain sleeping pills such as codeine. We surveyed 20 students, as you can see in this graph, and we asked them if they had been to the health center this year, and if they said yes, we asked them why they went and what prescription medications they received. 11 students said that they had been to the health center, and of those 11, 7 said they needed the prescription, 3 said they didn't, and 1 student did not receive any medication. One of the 3 students who did not need the medication claimed that they went into the health center, told the nurses they were having problems with studying, and received Adderall, no questions asked. If these results were to be translated to represent the entire student population at Cal Poly, it would mean that 27%, or about 5,400 students on campus, have misused prescription medications they've received from the health center. Although these numbers may sound exaggerated, they correlate with the 2011 study funded by the MetLife Foundation, which stated that 25% of high school students have admitted to using prescription drugs. The lack of restriction at the health center is allowing a surprising amount of students to receive prescription drugs and abuse them. One student who was surveyed admitted that although he would never misuse prescription drugs, if he received Adderall or Vicodin, he would consider selling it to peers. This is definitely not an action that Cal Poly wants to promote. If students continue to acquire these prescription drugs inappropriately, it can lead to addictive and unhealthy habits in the future. And this statistic states that more people die from prescription painkiller overdoses than from heroin, cocaine overdoses combined. And that can be found on Insane Facts. And in an article by Ron Shader, readers learn that students who continue to abuse prescription drugs actually end up with the opposite effects than they desire. And this article stated that in the 2009 National Risk Behavior Survey conducted by the Centers for Disease Control showed a strong correlation between illicit prescription drug use and academic performance in high school. Of those students who had taken such drugs once or more, 26% are mostly C's, while 41% registered D's and F's. So this shows that even though students are taking these medications to improve their study skills and hopefully receive better grades, they're actually not receiving the grades that they desire. And though it seems that these drugs improve daily activities, over time they actually have the opposite effects and diminish productivity and brain processes. Many students see these medications as harmless and non-addictive just because a doctor prescribes it. Those who abuse prescription drugs claim that they're not drug abusers, yet they show signs of dependency on the drug, and they believe that it's the only solution to their problem. They are unaware of the immense negative impacts these drugs have on their body, and they don't see the damaging consequences it can have on their life. Now that I've described to you the problem with the loose distribution of prescription medications from the health center, I will now tell you about why the current policy is causing this. It's obvious that the current policy is ineffective because students are going to the health center and receiving prescription medications they don't need, and this is not good. It's obvious, it's not only negative of influencing the students at Cal Poly, but it's also influencing the name of Cal Poly and its financial standings. Cal Poly is currently held at a very high standard, and if this drug abuse worsens, it can put the school's reputation at stake. And not to mention that this can cause so many lawsuits if a student overdoses or if a student becomes extremely ill, and even if a student is caught selling these prescription drugs that they received at the health center, this could definitely cause a lawsuit. And parents and doctors can hold not only the school but also the health center employees accountable for this. The last thing Cal Poly needs right now are legal issues to worry about when they already need to worry about economics and finances. If Cal Poly is sued, the school and its employees could lose millions of dollars. The revenue is already decreasing since medicine is expensive to produce and distribute, and Cal Poly offers these medications at decreased prices. Money will continue to be lost if the health center keeps prescribing unnecessary medications. Allocating more prescription medication than necessary is also keeping students who need the medicine from receiving it. The lines at the health center are already long enough, and students who are aiming to misuse the drugs are increasing the time it takes for the students who need the medicine to receive it efficiently. If the health center's current policy is changed, all these things can be turned around for the better. And Rebecca Shade will now talk to you about implementing a new policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. So, as Rachel mentioned, we would like to implement a new policy, one that is better because it's stricter and will help prevent unnecessary prescriptions being given to students who don't need them. One of the changes we'd like to make is if a student claims to have a previously existing prescription that requires stronger medications, such as ones we mentioned before, the health center needs to look into that. They need to ask what it's for, they need to request to see the bottle or the slip from the previous prescription that they wish to refill, and then they need to call their healthcare provider to double check the reason for the prescription and the appropriate dosage. If the prescription is a valid prescription, they should then refill the prescription according to the healthcare provider's instructions. And if their prescription is invalid and it wasn't issued by their healthcare provider, then they should make a note on their medical record as to what happened. If students claim to be suffering from a new illness requiring a stronger medication, such as codeine, Xanax, Zoloft, or Adderall, or any of the ones that we've mentioned previously as well, then the health center needs to test it out. They need to recommend them to the on-site psychiatrist for an evaluation. Other healthcare facilities already require sessions from psychiatrists prior to assigning prescriptions for the use of stronger drugs, and we should too. It will help deter students because it requires another step they will have to take to get the drugs. This will require more of their time, and so they'll be less likely to want to bother with it. Also, by double checking the validity of students' prescriptions, the school will build up a better reputation of being hard on drugs here on campus. It will also help save Cal Poly money on unnecessary prescriptions, and there will be fewer students coming in to get medications they don't need. So the health center will see fewer healthy students coming in and wasting the students' time, or the doctor's time. It will lower wait times for the students as well. And there are several other ways it will improve things for the students. There will be fewer students suffering from prescription drug addictions because we will no longer be giving them easy access to those addictive drugs. Students and taxpayers' dollars won't be wasted because it won't be going towards subsidizing unnecessary medications for addicted students. And one of the reasons that we care about preventing drug abuse, beside from obviously it's not good for you, some of the side effects of just one of the medications we've mentioned, codeine, if it's used improperly, can result in mental depression, respiratory depression, stupor, delirium, somnolence, dysphoria, seizures, hypotension, dizziness, nausea, vomiting, constipation, rashes, and acute renal failure. And so I'd like to hand it over to Natalie to conclude.
As we have pointed out, the current policy that the health center employs is too lenient and is allowing students easy access to prescription drugs. They could in turn be misusing or abusing the drugs and are therefore harming themselves. If the negative effects are not prevalent right away, it is possible that we are feeding a dependence on this drug that will lead to addictive habits in the future. We can hopefully help in decreasing that occurrence, as well as save the health center time and money by implementing this revised policy. By making it more difficult and legitimate for students to get prescription drugs, and by making them have a doctor's note necessary, it will save the health center time and money because less students will try to falsely acquire these drugs. Improving your current policy with the guidelines that we've laid out for you will benefit both the health center staff and the students who go in there for prescriptions. It's a win-win situation. So thank you for your time and attention. That's all.